Hello again, everyone. I am Chris Scherer, and this is the Citizen Sports Weekly for Wednesday, August 31st, 2022. Robert Harding, Justin Ritzel joining me. And this is our annual NFL season predictions, the ones that at least for me, I think I've kind of botched badly over the years. I mean, it's tough to predict things. You have injuries and other factors that, teams that we don't see doing anything come out of nowhere and go to the Super Bowl like the Bengals last year, and then teams we think that are, do really great and everything don't do as great as you might think they're going to. But anyways, we're gonna go through the divisions. We'll make our conference championship picks, our Super Bowl picks. We're also going to pick the MVP and the Coach of the Year. So, without further ado, I'll let Justin go first. Justin, go ahead, fire away. Give us your predictions for the 2022 NFL season.
Do you care to lead me in the direction of a particular conference?
All right. Well, I mean, you
division?
I guess we're doing division winners and also the wild card. So the 7 playoff teams in each conference. So I went through and picked each team's record, how I think they're going to finish. You're more than welcome to do that. But if you just want to go through, I think this team is going to win this division and this team is going to get a wild card and take it from there. That's fine by me. Whatever you want to do.
I thought we were doing the same thing we typically do, which is go through and talk about each team and each division. Truth be told, I did not do records for each individual team. In the past, I would go through and look, like, literally pick every single game throughout the NFL season because I wanted everything to match and be even, and I didn't want to have 10 teams or 4 teams from one division all winning 10 games. I don't know. I didn't do that this year. I'm just going to list my teams in order of division finish, and I guess I'll start with Robert's favorite division, the NFC Least, as he likes to call it. This division, the Cowboys won last year. There was some, I guess, Cowboys hype. At points last year, they looked as if they were the best team in the NFC. Then Dak Prescott got hurt, and obviously they lost on a very egregious end-of-game sequence to the 49ers in the first round. I think the Cowboys are missing the playoffs this year. I don't like the vibe around that team at all. Their offensive line it gets praised based on reputation. I don't think they've been that great of a unit going back at least 3 or 4 years. I actually have the Philadelphia Eagles winning this division. I think that, looking at their whole roster, I think they have one of the best rosters in the NFL. They obviously added a receiver, A.J. Brown, at the draft, and they should have a dominant defensive line and pretty good offensive line, which is usually a good recipe for success. They were a playoff team last year, so this isn't some outlandish, prediction. I have the Cowboys finishing second. I have the Giants, a bit of an improvement here, finishing third in the division, kind of looking like they're trending in the right direction. And then I think the Washington Commies will be absolutely pathetic, and they will bring up the rear in the NFC East.
All right. Do you want to go through your next division, Justin, or what do you just go? Or maybe
Let's do division by division. We'll all do it, and then we'll. Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Robert. You do the NFC Least.
Jeez, thought I was doing enough parenting today.
You're in the right room for it.
I too have the Eagles winning the division. I think that this is a much improved team, which is the Eagles didn't look too promising at the start of last season, but here we are. They made the playoffs last year, and I think they'll improve on that this year. I think they'll be the class of the division here. I too have the Cowboys finishing in second. They're a tough team for me. They were kind of on the cusp of missing the playoffs, making the playoffs. We'll get to that later, but I do have them finishing second. The Giants too. My old pal Brian Dable, they're now leading up things with the Giants. I think they'll be better. I don't know what that'll say for Daniel Jones and his future with the team, but I do think that they will be better, as a team. They won't make the playoffs, but I think that, record-wise, they will be better. And then the commies, pulling up the rear, Dan Snyder's disaster. This team is the gift that keeps on giving. They've got a president that likes to run his mouth about the press. They've got, players getting shot, which obviously not they're doing, but just a whole host of, messes here. And not to mention the fact that, that roster isn't that great. They've got some good players, of course, but, I think it's going to be a tough time for them in the NFC. So I've got them in last place as well.
Well, I'm going in a different direction than you guys. I actually have Dallas winning the division, and I understand why you would pick the Eagles, but here's the reason why I'm picking Dallas. Jalen Hurts. I'm not sold on him as an NFL, starting quarterback who can win the division. I think that Dak Prescott is still the best quarterback in that division by far. Ezekiel Elliott. Yes, the Cowboys are banged up on the offensive line. I get that. But I still think the Cowboys have enough talent, even though I don't think that their coaching's that great. I think the Cowboys still have enough talent. They're going to go 10-7, and they're going to win the NFC East over the Eagles, who are going to go 9-8. I've got the Commies going 6-11, and the Giants going 5-12. You could almost flip-flop those two teams, but it's a crappy division. Someone's got to win it. So I like the Cowboys. All right, Justin, your next division.
So let's move on over to the NFC South. This is an interesting division because I think the Bucs, if not having the best odds, but maybe the second best odds pretty much throughout this whole offseason because of who their quarterback is. I think everyone kind of pencils them in as just being this dynamic team. I think they're still going to win the division, but I don't think they're going to run away with it by any stretch of the imagination because they can't beat the New Orleans Saints except that one playoff game. But every other time they play, Tom Brady looks like a rookie who doesn't know how to throw the football. It's really amazing how New Orleans is kind of taken it to the Bucs. So I still see the Bucs winning the division, but I think they have more question marks than people are really talking about. I have the Saints finishing second, followed by a somewhat frisky Panthers team in third place. I think they could surprise some people with a decent defense. And then the Falcons, just not much to be excited about with that team. They're obviously trying to build their way back up. And Marcus Mariota, really. So I think they'll finish in fourth.
Okay. Robert?
Yeah, my order is the same as Justin. I think that this is really the Buccaneers division to lose here. Who knows though, during the season, Tom Brady just took some days off. He could take off a few Sundays here or there. And then we're talking about a whole different animal, but I think that they'll win this division and get in the playoffs. I have them as the only playoff team from that division, which I know we'll get to later, but I think the Saints will be, above 500. I got them penciled in at 9-8. Panthers and Falcons rounding things out in the NFC South.
Okay. I've got Tampa Bay going 13-4, easily winning the division. New Orleans 8-9. I think the coaching drop off, losing Sean Payton, is going to affect the Saints. And Jameis Winston, look, he can play as well as anybody, but he can also play as bad as anybody too. They're going to go 8-9. I've got Carolina going 6-11, and I've got Atlanta going 5-12. So yes. All right, Justin, I guess we're going to go to your favorite division now.
The AFC South? No,
your favorite, the NFC North.
Well, my favorite team's in the division. It's certainly not my favorite division. I dislike strongly the other three teams in the division, as one would expect. Listen, the Packers are going to win this division, barring some injury to Aaron Rodgers. That's really the only way I could see it shaking out differently. It's crazy because I think top to bottom, their roster is actually better than it was last year when they won 13 games and obviously had the top seed in the NFC. But you lose a a player who's arguably the best at his position, and people, I think, have overreacted to that. They're going to be a different looking team. They're not going to throw the ball up and down the field, but there's no reason why this defense can't be like a top 5, top 3 unit. And if they're not, I think something seriously went wrong, because they have an immense amount of talent on that side of the ball. And then on the other side, you're just, you're betting on the MVP, 2 times over reigning MVP to figure it out. And they're going to run the ball. I've kind of said they're going to be like the 49ers, but with a Hall of Fame quarterback. I think that's a pretty good recipe. So I like them to finish first. I think the Vikings are going to be frisky. They have a lot of offensive talent. So I actually think they're going to be second place, but I think they're going to sneak in as a wild card. And then I have the Lions finishing third. I think the difference between them and the Bears isn't necessarily that large as far as talent, but I think the Lions are trying to build a good culture, and they're trying to win games. And Jared Goff isn't good, but he's been there and been on a winning team before. So I think he can kind of keep the ship moving forward. And then the Bears are just, I think the Bears might be the worst team in football this year. So zero hope for them. They stink pretty much at every aspect of their roster. And I don't have high hopes for their quarterback either. So Bears finish fourth.
Robert?
Yeah, I too have the Packers winning the NFC North. I think what they have with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, that could be quite a 1-2 punch. Everybody's worried about Devontae Adams and, how his departure will affect Aaron Rodgers. Look, Aaron Rodgers can throw to anybody because he's the best quarterback in the game. I'm not worried about that, but I think the offense is really going to run through those 2 running backs. I think even Aaron Rodgers said that those 2 guys, in addition to, how well they run the ball, they could each have 50 catches this year. And I think that kind of offers you a hint as to, how they're going to spread the ball around, look to make plays. They have 2 great guys in the backfield. Jones has already established himself as a great receiving back. Dillon, you put the ball in that guy's hands, he's going to plow through some people. And then, we'll see how this, fairly young receiving core does. But, again, they'll have Aaron Rodgers throwing them the ball. So, I don't think they'll fare too badly. The Vikings, they were one of those teams for me, similar to the Cowboys, like right on the cusp. I think that they have, enough talent to, get in the playoffs, but, they also have a history of when it counts. So really, really tough choice for me there as to which one of those 2 teams gets in, but I do have them finishing second here. I also have the Lions third. I think, they're starting to show something, some Motor City grit. I don't think that'll mean, playoffs or even a 500 record, but they'll certainly be better than the Bears, who don't know where they'll be playing in a few years. They want to pull a Shearer and move out to the suburbs, I guess. We'll see.
All right. Well, I've got the Packers winning the division, going 12-5. Vikings going 10-7. Detroit 6-11, and the Bears bringing up the rear at 5-12. All right, Justin, go ahead. NFC West.
So interestingly enough, I do not have the reigning Super Bowl champions winning this division. I think the Rams are a wild card, but I just think obviously Matt Stafford is having some sort of elbow issue that he's kind of been dealing with on and off this whole offseason. Like they lightened his load all training camp, and he's not exactly like the prime example of like great health throughout his career. I think there should be more concern about kind of him getting through this season healthy. I mean, he was banged up at times last year, and they were worried about his recovery. So couple that with, yes, they won the Super Bowl. They also had a pretty easy, relatively easy road. I mean, they faced a wild card in the conference championship game. They faced a Bengals team that no one expected to make it to the Super Bowl. Just a lot of things really went in their favor, and they were still, they weren't like the top seed in the NFC. They were third or fourth, I think.
And to win at Tampa Bay, that's not easy, by the way.
Tampa Bay team that was very banged up and, had two receivers missing. You know, I think again, it was not this like great path to the Super Bowl. They won it, you know, credit to them. But then you go into this offseason where like Aaron Donald's thinking about retiring. Sean McVay's thinking about stepping away. What are the chances Cooper Kupp is going to have the same season he did last year? Like, I just think there's a lot, like Jalen Ramsey's hurt. He's been battling something all summer. He's coming off an injury. Like, I just think that, you know, yes, they still have the star power, but that star power is diminished. And so I think they're going to make the playoffs and be a wild card team, but I don't think they're going to have some great regular season. I have the 49ers winning this division. This is a bit of a gamble. Their quarterback is a complete unknown, but they have a great roster. And if Trey Lance, like, can kind of be almost Colin Kaepernick 2.0, you know, good luck beating that team. Good luck stopping that offense. He's got some question marks. It could also go the complete other way where he's just absolutely terrible and it submarines their season. I leave that possibility open, but I'm going to take the more positive side of things for them and say he's pretty dang good, and they're one of the best teams in the NFC because everywhere else on their roster, they're pretty stacked. So my order is 49ers winning it, Rams second as a wild card team. I also have the Cardinals making it as a wild card team. You know, people forget they did start off like 7 or 8-0 last year. They have a pretty decent roster despite all the Kyler Murray drama. And then the Seahawks, like the Bears, will be competing for that number 1 pick.
Robert?
Yeah, that I also have 3 of these teams making the playoffs, not the Seahawks, of course. But you know, the order is different. I think the Cardinals will win this division. I think, to your point, Justin, about the Rams, just too many question marks. You know, Aaron Donald, as you mentioned, you know, flirting with retirement, the McVay stuff, Stafford's arm, you know, they're pretty banged up. You know, you're going to be missing, you know, a key piece from their playoff run. It can't be overlooked that Odell Beckham Jr. was a huge contributor for them down the stretch last year. And, you know, he might not even be a Ram this season. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously he's coming back from an ACL injury. So we'll see where he lands, but, you know, I think the Rams will get in as a wild card, but, you know, for the same reason as Justin, it's you know, there's a lot of question marks there. And as we know, for championship teams, you know, it's tough to repeat that kind of success in the NFL and get back there. You know, you not only have that target on your back, but you need a lot of things to go your way. The Rams had a lot of things go their way last year. I don't think history will repeat itself. But I just like the Cardinals to win this division here. I think they have a lot of talent. You know, they locked up Kyler Murray, which was really their only option. You know, he has put up some good numbers and gives them a solid, you know, 1-2 punch there with his ability to run the ball. And, you know, he's a decent passer as well. They've got plenty of weapons there. Is Hopkins going to be out? Is he suspended? Yeah. So that will be something that they have to get over. But I think they have plenty of talent on the offensive side of the ball, and on defense, you know, they've got a lot of talent too. So I like them to win this division. I do have the 49ers getting in as well. You know, I was a little more hesitant than Justin. I wasn't going to anoint them NFC West champions, but I do think that, you know, from top to bottom, a great roster here. The only question is, can Trey Lance get the job done? And, you know, I think he can do enough to get them in the playoffs. And of course, the lowly Seahawks, who, you know, let Russell Wilson go. Russ, let's ride into the sunset. And the Seahawks, you know, I think they'll finish with a few wins this year and compete for that number 1 pick.
Well, you know, I'm not saying I always give the benefit of the doubt to the defending champs, but I like the Rams to win the division. I think some of those question marks. I mean, look, Aaron Donald is back. Okay. Sean McVay's back. It's not like, you know, this is, you know, like March or something, and these guys they're back. Okay. They're going to be fine. I like Arizona to go 10-7. But I'm the Niners 8-9. I'm sorry, Trey Lance. I mean, look, if the Niners felt that great about Trey Lance, then why is Jimmy Garoppolo still a Niner? Okay, why they could get something. I mean, look, I understand that you don't want to give away the house or something like that. You got to get something of value for him. But seriously, I mean, there's a reason why that they're hedging their bets here by re-signing or bringing back Jimmy Garoppolo, okay, making him the backup. Because I guarantee if Trey Lance, they're not going to give him the hook the first couple weeks. But let's say by week 4, San Francisco's 0-3 or 0-4, 1-3, 1-4. I don't see how this experiment's going to end well. So I think San Francisco's going to go 8-9. Okay, Seattle, 5-12. I mean, they're not going anywhere this year. All right, Justin, we're going to move to the AFC East now. I'm sure you have the Bills winning the division like the rest of us, right?
Chris, I'm going to stay out west. I think we should do the AFC East last due to YouTube goons. So I'm gonna start out with my AFC West picks.
All right.
I wonder if you guys know where this is going.
Oh God, he's going to pick the Chargers to win.
Pick the Chargers.
I think the Chargers are winning this division.
He never learns. He never learns.
Hey,
cannabis is legal in New York now.
I think this is. It's going to be so fun watching this division play out because I really think. Less so the Raiders than everyone else. But I think you can make a case absolutely that there are 3 really good teams that not only could win this division, but maybe if things break their way, could be that number 1 seed in the AFC. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen, but my thing with the Chargers is those defensive pieces that they added between getting Khalil Mack to pair with Joey Bosa as the pass rushers. They get J.C. Jackson to play corner with a really nice young stable in that secondary. Like on paper, they are really talented. I'm sure their depth isn't that great. And what always seems to do the Chargers in is they have a couple leaky pipes along the offensive line. But I think Justin Herbert is that talented that he can overcome some of that stuff. They got some solid receivers. They have a good running back. Like I don't see any like damning holes on this roster. Really, it always comes down to them. It's just like they have terrible luck. And one of these years, hopefully this is the year where the luck kind of swings their way. I think, if I compare them to the Chiefs, I think people forget that Patrick Mahomes was like awful for a month and a half last year. He ended his season with just a cataclysmic choke job in the AFC Championship. Like this is, everyone. He's one of the great quarterbacks, one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL. No denying that. But until I see him like run more of a typical NFL offense that doesn't have the fastest guy in the NFL on it, I'm going to have my question marks. And I think some teams kind of showed the way as far as how best to defend the Chiefs. I still think they're going to be a playoff team as a wild card. I also like the Broncos to be a wild card team. I think Russell Wilson's demise has been greatly exaggerated. Let's not forget in 2020, he was the MVP favorite the first 8 weeks of the season. He was lights out, kind of obviously tailed off in the second half. And last year, he was really good before he got hurt. So I think a healthy Russell Wilson, maybe not peak of his powers, but is still very effective. And the Broncos have some intriguing pieces there. So I think they're a wild card team. And then I'm not buying the Raiders. All due respect to Devontae Adams, who I'm a big fan of, even though he's wearing the silver and black instead of the green and gold. Yes, they have a great tight end. They have a great receiver. Hunter Renfrow is a nice receiver. I have questions about every other aspect of their roster. Their defense, their secondary, like you're going to be able to throw on them, no problem. And then Josh McDaniels. How do we know that he has learned his lessons? Like I could see him just absolutely once again being a terrible head coach. So out of all the teams in the division, they just have way more question marks to me. So I think they're going to finish fourth, and I think their playoff appearance last year was quite a mirage that I'm not buying. So Chargers 1, Chiefs, Broncos, and then Raiders in fourth.
Robert?
Yeah, I can't dethrone the Chiefs just yet. I mean, they do have Mahomes. They do have the greatest tight end to ever do it. And they have these role player type receivers that seem to contribute and find a way. You know, they did pick up, Juju Smith-Schuster, which I think will be an intriguing piece in that offense. You know, not Tyreek Hill by any stretch, but certainly a guy that has been, he can be like a possession type receiver. He's got some size to him. You know, I think that'll work out pretty well in that offense. And I think they'll win the AFC West, but it'll be a fight for them because to Justin's point, really all four of these teams, I think, can hang with the Chiefs now, if not topple them. And, I have the Chargers finishing close behind, getting a wild card. I think that team is going to be a dangerous team come January. More on that later. The Raiders and Broncos to me was a toss-up. My feeling about Russell Wilson is, boy, when he's at his best, this should be a no-brainer. But I've just seen it too much. Maybe it's the fantasy owner in me that has taken Russell Wilson one too many times, I guess. And I've just seen him when it matters. And so I went with the Raiders here, finishing ahead of the Broncos by a game. But all four of these teams, what a division, really going to give, I think, because of how, there's parity here, this is going to be the best division in football. And I would not be surprised to see, any sort of, any of these other teams finish ahead of the Chiefs. But I think, when they've been the kings of the division for the last few years here, it's tough to go against them right now.
Yeah, this is without a doubt the best division in football and could arguably be one of the best divisions in NFL history from top to bottom. All right, so I've got the Chiefs going 12-5. I've got the Chargers going 11-6. I've got the Raiders going 10-7, and I've got Denver going 9-8. I mean, that's how close I think these teams are. I mean, they're all within a couple wins of each other, basically. But I think Mahomes is the difference maker. And Andy Reid, let's give Andy Reid some credit. I think coaching makes a difference too. And he is definitely the most experienced coach in the NFL after Belichick, obviously. But I think that coaching also means something too. And like you mentioned, Robert, Travis Kelce, I mean, yes, Hill's no longer a Chief. He's a Dolphin. But I still think that Kansas City's got enough with Mahomes to be able to squeak out and win that division. So, all righty, we're going to move to the AFC South then, Justin, and go ahead, fire away.
Well, we go from the best division in football to the absolute worst. I don't think we need to spend too much time on this division. It's not. There's not really anything exciting about it. I think the Colts are going to win it. I just think getting that stability that Matt Ryan provides is such a boost over what Carson Wentz gave you. Even if he's obviously on the back nine of his career, he's not the best version of Matt Ryan, but just that steadying presence to pair with like a awesome offensive line, a great running back, and a talented defense and a great coach. So I like the Colts. The Titans were the number one seed last year. I don't think they're making the playoffs this year. And then I have the Jaguars kind of taking a step forward just by virtue of not having Urban Meyer there, who was just a complete and utter disaster. I think they look a little better this year. And then the Texans, I don't think they're going to be like Seahawks, Bears level bad. I think with Lovie Smith, like they're going to play hard. They're going to be, kind of a underdog team sort of thing. But there's just such a lack of talent there that hard to see them doing much. So I have them finishing fourth.
Robert?
Yeah, I won't waste too much time here because we have better football to talk about. Same order as Justin. I too have the Colts winning the division. I think Matt Ryan gives them stability at quarterback. He's a huge upgrade over Wentz. I know that, people apparently feel strongly about Wentz in the commies organization, but that guy's best years are behind him. I trashed him last year. I'll keep trashing him. I don't think he's that good. He can't stay healthy. He needs a lot of different pieces around him. I think Matt Ryan comes in, a veteran presence, obviously some experience winning football games and playing good football over the years. He'll lead the Colts to the playoffs.
Well, I think Matt Ryan is an old quarterback who got a year older. And Tennessee, Derrick Henry, remember he missed a lot of last year. I think his presence, if he's healthy, will make the difference. Tennessee going 10-7, Indy going 9-8, Jacksonville 5-12, and Houston 4-13. All right, AFC North. Go ahead, Justin.
I am not a believer in the Bengals. I've heard some people say they're a top 5 roster in the entire league. Again, much like their opponent in the Super Bowl, the Rams. I think that they had a lot of things go their way in the playoffs and toward the end of the season. They avoided some matchups, like they face the Raiders in round 1. Okay, a Raiders team that had no business being in the playoffs. They then go to Tennessee, who was, I think most people would say, the worst number 1 seed of all time. They go on the road and beat the Chiefs. Obviously, hey, that's an impressive win. Can't take anything away from them there. And then they lose to the Rams in the Super Bowl. I think they only won. They were a 10-7 team last year. We look at Joe Burrow as like being in this upper echelon of quarterbacks now, but keep in mind he threw like 500 yards in each of their last 2 games of the regular season. His statistics do not reflect how like his performance throughout the year. He kind of padded his stats at the end, like necessarily they needed to win those games, but the numbers look more impressive than how he actually played, in my opinion. Their defense is like one of those, they don't have a lot of star power. They're just they play well as a unit. But I don't think they can sustain maybe what they did last year. I have them being a wild card team, but not winning the division. I like the Ravens to bounce back. They were kind of the team from hell last year. They had so many injuries in training camp that their season was lost really before it began. Lamar missed a bunch of games. So I think the Ravens are going to revert closer to maybe not as good as their 2019 season, but maybe back in their 2020 range where, they're competing for the division title, and I think they're going to win it. The Steelers, I have them finishing 3rd. I think, obviously, I've made fun of Mitch Trubisky a lot over the years. I do think there's something to be said for taking him out of a miserable situation in Chicago and putting him in a situation with a nice, solid franchise like the Steelers, where he's going to have players around him that are good receivers. He's got a good running back. The offensive line isn't great, but he'll have that support from the defense. I think the Steelers are maybe not necessarily a playoff team, but I think they're going to look a lot better than they did last year because Roethlisberger was cooked going back a couple of years. I think they'll be in the mix for the wild card, even if they don't necessarily get in. They'll finish 3rd. And then the Browns, hey, they got a lot of talent, but I'm crushing them. I'm putting them in 4th place just because I think this is, not the greatest analysis, but how they've decided to build their team with the whole Deshaun Watson stuff. I'm putting in Italian, the Malocchia on them. I think they're going to finish 4th. Chris, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Robert, go ahead.
I feel a little bit better about the Bengals than Ritz, although I acknowledge that, they did benefit from some situations last year that got them to the Super Bowl for sure. But I don't think you can overlook that offense, as long as Burrow stays healthy. They got a great running back, good receivers. They've got a pretty good setup there on the offensive side of the ball. Defense is solid too. So I think that they can get through this division. The Ravens, I think they'll be right there too. I do have them, competing for the division title, finishing not not too far behind the Bengals there. I think that they'll be, to Justin's point, they did deal with a lot of injuries last year. It seemed like every day you would check ESPN.com and someone new was out for the season. It was just insane how many season-ending injuries they dealt with. The Steelers, I think that, I think they'll play this kind of spoiler role because they do have a lot of talent, and I could see them giving their AFC North opponents a hard time as always. But they could give some other teams some problems as well because of that defense. As long as whoever plays quarterback, it looks like it's going to be Trubisky for now. Yeah, but even if Kenny Pickett gets in there, if you get good enough quarterback play, you can compete with anybody in this league. So, I think that they'll be in this spoiler role. Not a playoff team, but I think they'll get back there within the next year or two. And the Browns, screw the Browns. You want to employ Deshaun Watson? F you in every single prediction I do of you guys. And, not for nothing, but, you get what you deserve by getting this guy, getting everybody's hopes up, thinking the Browns are going to be a contender. And, oh, by the way, yeah, the NFL's still going to suspend his ass into oblivion. So luckily he is. Good luck with Jacoby Brissett. Have fun this season.
I've got the Bengals winning the division 12-5. I mean, we all talk about Burrow, but I think the Bengals defense did a pretty darn good job last year. I mean, think about it. They held the Rams to under 25 points in the Super Bowl. They shut down the Chiefs in Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. I think their defense is underrated, and because everybody's talking about Joe Burrow and what the steps he took last year. So I think the Bengals are winning the division 12-5. Baltimore 11-6. I think the Lamar Jackson contract squabble is going to have a little bit of an impact on this team. Pittsburgh 8-9. I think Kenny Pickett's going to be starting by the halfway through point of the season. At the worst, he could be starting earlier because I think Mitch Trubisky is not going to be that great. So 8-9 for the Steelers, and the Browns 6-11, and that's being generous because they're going to get Watson back towards the end of the year. Jacoby Brissett, I saw him play with Miami last year. He's horrible. He's got nothing. The Browns are going to be – I can't believe – I saw an article on The Athletic talking about Jacoby Brissett and how well he did when he was with Indy and everything. And the problem is, like, you don't even mention what he did last year with Miami. He was horrible with Miami last year. And I get it, Miami's offensive line was dog doing everything. But I'm telling you, he was horrible. I can't see him doing anything for the Browns this year. Browns are going to be 6-11. All right. Finally, the AFC East. Go ahead, Justin.
Well, the Bills are going to win this in a walk. I'm not really coming out of left field with that prediction. They're the Super Bowl favorites right now. I think deservedly so. A great roster. It's hard to put too many holes in. I think if I'm looking at the Bills, my concern would be, I don't see a lot of blue chippers there along the offensive line, but if there's any quarterback who I would pick to overcome that, I mean, Josh Allen is kind of the perfect style of player. So, let's not forget though with the Bills, I think there's an argument to be made, and maybe Robert, who watches the team more closely than I do, obviously would disagree, but I think the Bills were actually a better team in 2020. I think their offense was way more consistent and dynamic. Like Josh Allen was second in the MVP conversation. Their offense took, it kind of had its ups and downs last year. Who can forget that just absolutely brutal loss to Jacksonville? And I think their defense last year was better statistically due to kind of a weak schedule. So I think you're going to see more of a 2020 version of the Bills this year. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like if they're scoring 35 points a game and their defense is, maybe not the number one unit, but a top 10 unit, good luck. I have the Dolphins actually finishing second. I understand the jokes, like you making fun of Tua and, what's Tyreek Hill thinking going from Mahomes to Tua, who is afraid to throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field. Hey, I get it. That's warranted, I guess. There's been a lot of turnover. Tua has not been in the greatest situation between his own injuries, between like whatever that offensive staff has been doing the last couple of years. Chris, you can speak to that. Having Mike McDaniel there, who comes from has a good pedigree, comes from a good system, learning under Kyle Shanahan, I think he can manufacture some stuff with the Dolphins. And as far as Tyreek Hill, let's not forget, his first breakout season in the NFL, when he kind of established himself as, like an all-pro talent, it was not with Patrick Mahomes. He did it with Alex Smith, who I think plays a very similar style to Tua, and he was effective with that quarterback. So I think his demise has been exaggerated as well. And you have Waddle, who's a good talent. The Dolphins are going to be an interesting team to watch. I think they'll be in the mix for maybe one of those wild card spots. I have them second in this division. And then the Patriots have just been kind of a total disaster this preseason. I think they're going to take a step back. And the Jets are the Jets. I feel bad because I like that coaching staff, but until they actually do it and show some improvement, I'm going to bet against them, and with good reason. So I have them finishing fourth.
All right, Robert, go ahead.
Well, the Jets stink. The Patriots will stink. The Dolphins, I think they could almost be like the 2021 Bengals, but they're not going to sniff the Super Bowl. The Bills are going to win this division. I think they'll go 6-0 again in this division.
How many wins for the season, Robert?
13.
Okay.
13 wins. I think they'll get there. I think to Justin's point about them last year, I think they got a little too cute. Dable wanted to throw the ball all the time, and I get it. It's the NFL, the pass happy NFL this year, but now what you have in that backfield, I think that will help them, and they don't need to be. Everybody's you got to be balanced. Well, my definition of balance is being able to run the ball competently when you have to, but obviously you want to be throwing the ball most of the time and make plays that way. Now they have a three-headed monster running back, which if those guys stay healthy, Zach Moss looks powerful. Devin Singletary looks as better, looks better than ever, which is, something because he played pretty well last year. And then the rookie, James Cook, I think he's going to be a problem for some teams. And then, of course, you've got, Diggs and Davis on the outside. Isaiah McKenzie, I think, is going to be just an absolute, improvement over COVID Beasley. And, look, Dawson Knox, had a nice season for them. I think, he'll continue that. He's got a good rapport with Josh Allen. And then the defense. I think that defense is as good as anybody out there. And, when they're playing up to snuff, this team can go all the way. So, one thing I will say about the Dolphins, and, Chris might be surprised to hear me say anything nice about this team. I really like, the kind of culture that Mike McDaniel's cultivating there. Certainly beats that bum Ross sitting up there and trying to bribe his way to, number one picks and all this other nonsense. McDaniel's come in, and he actually, unlike anybody that the Dolphins have had in like the last 30 years with that team, he actually wants to build a winner. So it's nice to see, this guy come in. They've added some pieces. I think that offense will be an improvement. They still have a noodle arm that can't throw the ball more than 8 yards downfield. But hey, now you've got two nice receivers there that, can catch the ball when he tosses it to him 2 yards away. And those boys can take off, between Hill and Waddle. They're going to give teams some trouble. You're not letting me finish, Chris. I'm trying to say something nice here. Hill and Waddle are going to be trouble for teams. Not the Bills, but for other teams in the AFC for sure. That's a 1-2 punch that, they're similar styles. They've got a lot of speed. I think Waddle has a little more versatility, inside and out. Hill can be a big deep threat, obviously. So I think that they're going to cause some trouble. And then your boy Gesicki there, an underrated tight end in this league. I think that, they'll definitely rack up some wins, riding those guys.
Well, I'm going to reply to the two. I'm not a member of Two and On, by the way, as Dolphins Twitter knows about Two and On. Those are the Twitter fans.
What the hell is going on with that?
Two and On. If you say anything bad about Tua, they literally just jump all over you on Twitter. Anyways, I don't know if you saw the first play of the Dolphins-Eagles game last weekend, and I get it was the Eagles' second-team defense, whatever. But Tua threw a 50-yard strike to Hill on the first play of the game. Okay, I actually tracked it. It was 55 yards in the air. Okay, it went from the 17 of Miami to about the 25 of Philly. It went 55 yards in the air. That's not a noodle arm, my friend. You can do 55. Now, of course,
he won an MVP in a scrimmage.
Some Tua haters, of which I'm not one, but I'm not a Tua either. I'm in the middle. Said that if he had hit him on the fly, it would have been an easy 6 points. Well, I look, that's irrelevant. It's still a 55-yard gain. But yeah, I like what the Dolphins are building right now. I mean, they've got so much talent on offense. Gesicki's on the trading block, believe it or not, because he doesn't fit McDaniel's offense because he's not a blocking tight end. I say screw the tight end title, make him a wide receiver, line him up on the outside, which they did a lot last year anyways, and just put the ball up in the air and he'll come down with it. I don't know why the blocking tight end thing. I get that's the McDaniel offense. But you can still run a blocking tight end and have Gesicki on flanked, off the end there. So, anyways, I've got the Bills winning the division, 13-4. They're arguably easily the best team in football from top to bottom. I'll give them their props. I'm not going to, be a jerk there or anything. They're the best team in football. I have the Dolphins going 10-7. I think the offensive line still some question marks. Tua, I think is going to take a step forward. But I don't think he's going to take the leap that some Dolphin fans think he's going to take. I think he'll just be better because he's got more weapons around him and the offensive line has improved in some ways. The defense I'm kind of concerned about because everybody's making such a big deal. They brought everybody back, and I know they've added some pieces, Flowers and, some other things. They've added some pieces. But that defense did not play well in the first half of the season. They got lit up by the Bills twice. And basically, it's the same personnel, the same coaching staff. I'm curious, they took advantage of a weak schedule with that defense last year and when they won 8 in a row. So I have some questions about the defense. Will they be able to continue to if they play like they did in the last half of the season against the Bills, against some of the better teams are playing, then okay. But if they don't play that well, then we know that last season was a little bit of a mirage, and who knows, you might see some changes. I've got them going 10-7, and I have them missing the playoffs. By the way, they're gonna just be eked out of that tiebreaker again for the wild card. Patriots, Mac Jones is look. I don't know why people are so high on Mac Jones. I didn't show a lot last year as a rookie, and supposedly, as you alluded to, Robert, they've been a dumpster fire in their practices and their exhibition season. I don't know what's going on. Who's the offensive coordinator? They don't have one, remember? Matt Patricia, who was the defensive guru a few years ago, is going to run the offense. This isn't going to end up well. They're going to miss McDaniels, by the way, not to be confused with McDaniel. I've got New England going 8-9. I just don't see where this team, what weapons do they have? Devontae Parker. Really. And I've got the Jets going 7-10. I think the Jets show some improvement. But they're still hindered by the quarterback. Zach Wilson still untested. The Jets could actually maybe even go 6-11, 5-12, but I'm being nice to them. 7-10. I think the defense plays better. But yeah, the Bills are clearly the kings of the AFC East, and they're the best team in the NFL by far. All right, so we're going to go to what? Conference? Well, I didn't go through all my playoff picks, but I can go through that real quickly. I've got Buffalo, Tennessee, Cincinnati, and Kansas City winning divisions. Wild cards to the Raiders, the Chargers, the Ravens. And the NFC, Cowboys winning the division. Eagles with a wild card. Tampa Bay winning the division. Green Bay winning their division. Minnesota with a wild card. And I've got the Rams winning the West with Arizona with a wild card. All right, so do you guys want to go to our conference championship picks now? Go ahead, Justin.
Well, my playoff teams, just as a reminder, in order of seeding will be Bills, Ravens, Chargers, Colts, and then Chiefs, Bengals, Broncos in the AFC. In the NFC, I once again have the Green Bay Packers getting the top seed. We'll see if it pays off for once. More on that in a moment. I have the 49ers. I'm betting on the upside. It's the number 2 seed. The Eagles, Bucks, and then Rams, Cardinals, Vikings as the 3 wild cards. AFC, I like the Bills over the Chargers. I kind of hope that's the matchup, just because I think it'd be such a fun game to watch Allen and Herbert go toe to toe. And then I have the Bills winning that game and advancing to the Super Bowl. In the NFC, the Packers are finally going to do it. They're going to beat the 49ers in their own house, finally, because as I kind of said before, I think they're mimicking the 49ers, but they're going to do it with a better quarterback. They're not, and also keep in mind, this is always kind of forgotten about the Packers' playoff failures. They've had terrible luck with like their offensive line just totally getting hurt right when the playoffs start. The key to them is going to be having a healthy offensive line. You pair that with Aaron Rodgers and a good defense, and not giving up punt returns for touchdowns with a minute left in regulation. It sounds like a recipe to success for me. I think they're going to beat San Fran in the conference championship to face the Bills in the Super Bowl. And unfortunately for me, I think the Bills will beat Green Bay in the Super Bowl for their first championship.
All right. Well, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump ahead of Robert here. So in the NFC, I have Justin's Green Bay Packers going to the championship game against the Buccaneers. So we're going to have Brady and Rodgers one more time, and I think Tampa Bay gets it done. I think that unfortunately, for Justin, unfortunately, the Packers are going to come up short again in the NFC championship game, and it's going to be Tampa Bay representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. In the AFC, of course, I've got the Bills. I was playing the Bengals. This is the game we should have had last year before the Bills defense, as Robert would say. But I've got the Bills winning the AFC championship game. So I've got the Bills and the Buccaneers. The Bills have had a tortured history against Tom Brady, but guess what? This isn't the Patriots. It's the Buccaneers. Yes, I too have the Bills winning the Super Bowl. Robert?
I just to kind of circle back with the playoff teams, my AFC seeds are 1 Bills, 2 Chiefs, 3 Bengals, 4 Colts, 5 Chargers, 6 Dolphins, 7 Raiders. In the NFC, I've got 1 Buccaneers, 2 Cardinals, 3 Packers, 4 Eagles, 5 Rams, 6 Niners, 7 Cowboys. My championship games in the NFC, I've got the Bucks over the Cardinals. I do think that the Packers will beat the Niners at home in the wild card round, but in accordance with the guidelines of this show, as to not jinx the Packers, I refuse to pick them any deeper than the divisional round. So Buccaneers over the Cardinals and the NFC title game. And the AFC title game, I actually am with Ritz on this one. I have the Bills over the Chargers as well. I think those 2 teams are the best 2 teams in the AFC. So it'll be fitting that they meet in that game. And then, yes, Tom Brady. You want a vacation, Tom? I got a vacation for you. The Bills are going to kick your ass and send you on to the off season and hopefully retirement that you've been stalling. Poor Giselle. I don't know why you hate her, Tom. Okay, just go home, retire. That's what she wants. Just do it, Tom. It's for the children. The Bills will win the Super Bowl. I'm excited for this season. I think that the Bills, this is the best team that they've ever assembled. Even going back to the 4 Super Bowl runs in the 90s, this team's better. They should win it. They just got to take care of business. As the Washington Nationals said in 2019, go 1-0 every day. They need to go 1-0 on whatever day they're playing. Thursday, Sunday, Monday, win the games, win the Super Bowl.
All right. Now we're going to move to the MVP and the Coach of the Year awards. Then we're going to wrap it up as we're about an hour in here. All right. MVP, I got Tom Brady. I just think there's no way the Buccaneers get near the Super Bowl unless Tom Brady is Tom Brady. So one more time for the old man. Maybe I'm sympathetic because I'm close in age to him. And then I've got Robert's boy, McDermott, being Sean McDermott being coach of the year. Yes, the Bills are favored to win everything, but it's when you're favored and you actually do it, that's a pretty big thing. And I think Sean McDermott gets his due, and he's coach of the year. Go ahead, Robert.
My MVP pick is Justin Herbert with the Chargers. I think that if the Chargers are going to establish themselves as an AFC power, they're going to need him to play at the best of his ability. And I think with that offense, he can really light it up and post some big numbers this year. So I have him win the MVP. And then coach of the year, Mike McDaniel of the Miami Dolphins. I think that
wow.
he's going to come in and set a new tone for this team. It seems like he's a pretty cool guy. I think he's going to come in with a fresh look, certainly better than Shira and a lot of these old fans have. Run the ball. I think Mike McDaniel will come in and really create an offense there that can make them compete week in and week out.
He is going to run the ball. Do you understand? His offense is running the football. Raheem Mostert. Look at the way they changed the running back room. Okay, they cut Sony Michel. They've got Mostert.
You're not running the ball 30 times a game when you have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill on the outside.
Well, what they're going to do is they're going to do the end around reverse things, and it's basically going to be a running game with those two guys, believe me. But anyways, go ahead, Justin.
Well, recent history suggests that you're not winning the MVP unless you're one of the top seeds in your conference. So by process of elimination, because I have the Bills and the Packers as the top seeds, it's got to be one of those two quarterbacks. And Aaron Rodgers ain't winning it for the third straight year. I didn't think he was going to win it 2 straight years. No one likes him, and I don't think he's going to have the stats that he put up the last couple of years by virtue of how they're going to play offense. And I've made this point the last couple of years, and it hasn't really quite worked out. When I picked Dak Prescott 2 years ago, and I picked Allen again last year. Voters want to anoint the new guy, the guy who hasn't won the MVP. They don't like giving it to guys who have won it already. That's why Tom Brady has only won 3, because they get sick of giving him all the awards. And I think they reluctantly gave it to Rodgers last year. I think that the script is just too perfect for Josh Allen. If the Bills get that top seed and they're as good as I think they're going to be, I just think it's going to be a natural fit for him to win it. And I think, like I said, if he puts up similar stats to what he did in 2020, he'll be a deserving candidate. I struggle with coach of the year because it's just, you see a lot of coaches who aren't really that good coaches win it. Like Jason Garrett won it a few years ago. He's a terrible coach. There's no rhyme or reason to who wins it each and every year. Sometimes you get the coach who coaches a team into the playoffs when they had no business winning it. Sometimes you give it to Mike Vrabel, who won it last year because his team was the number 1 seed, even though everyone knew they stunk. So I struggle with this. I had Frank Reich at one point. As of a few minutes ago, I had Mike Tomlin. I'm just going to go with Matt LaFleur. I think the guy is – I just think he wins 13 games every single season. And the people think that the Packers are going to take this big step back on offense. I just think, I just threw my hands up with this award, and the Packers got to get something. So I'm gonna say that he's going to win it.
When all else fails, be a homer. That's really the takeaway from the show today.
Well, this has been fun, guys. We do this every year. It's a lot of fun. It's always enjoyable to see our predictions, and then when we look back at them in January, and we're wondering why the hell did we do that? Now, speaking of predictions, next week. I believe we're going next Wednesday or next Thursday. We'll obviously before the opening game, but we're going to do our pick 4, of which yours truly is the defending champion. And I want to say thanks again to Robert for a great trophy. I look at it every day, take a lot of pride in it. So I am going to announce the 4 games that we'll be picking for week 1, since it is my choice. So number 1 game, obviously right off the bat, Bills-Rams. Have to do that one. Number 2, my Miami Dolphins against the Patriots. Number 3, the Raiders and the Chargers. We've got to get an AFC West matchup in there. And then the last game, Tampa Bay, Dallas. So I think we've got some 4 good games there. Robert's kind of giving me that, maybe.
What was the second game? You kind of broke out there.
New England, Miami. New England, Miami. This should be a good game. Anyways.
I can tell you what my pick is going to be for that game right now. It's going to be the Dolphins. I don't care what the spread.
Bills, Rams, Patriots, Dolphins, Raiders, Chargers, Buccaneers, and the Cowboys. So I
can't wait to look over the week 1 schedule, and like we do every time Chris makes the picks. Wondering why this excellent game on the slate was not picked for the Big 4, because it's a, what do you call it? A tri-weekly tradition.
The only game you can nitpick with me is if I pick the Chiefs and the Cardinals. That's it. All right. Well, okay. Do you want to replace one of those games? I mean, I can look. If you want to replace New England, Miami with Kansas City, Arizona, I can do it. We can do it. You want to replace New England, Miami with Kansas City, Arizona?
No. It's your picks, Chris.
No. I'm just saying.
I'd rather get the joy out of nitpicking than for you to change the picks.
All right, guys. Hey, everyone, thanks for joining us. It's been a lot of fun. It's going to be a great season. Can hardly wait. It's too bad it's not going to be this Sunday or this Thursday, but we're getting there. We've got some college football this weekend to tide us over to the NFL starts. So, gentlemen, as always, an honor and a pleasure. Folks, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.